Have you ever wondered where the dust goes in your lovely Mac computer? Well, I know where my dust goes. It's right here. That's going to make the Crapple fanboys rage, I'm sure. Before we get going in this video, and I do speak quite highly of Apple products, I have no commercial connection with Apple, I've got no shares in the Apple company, and whenever I've purchased Apple products, I've paid the full price. If you are going to copy what you see me do in this video, please do it at your own risk. And also think about the risk versus reward of keeping dust out of your computer. It's not often I talk computers, but I had to buy a new computer 6 months ago. I bought a Mac Studio. It took 3 months to deliver, and I've had it for 3 months. I'm going to discuss just how much dust this little monster collects underneath. I just wrapped the camera around the Mac Studio here, remembering it's been here 3 months. I've made a little custom filter underneath this computer to try and stop dust from going inside the computer, because I know what happened to my old iMac and I don't want the same to happen to this computer here. I've got a few things to say about the keyboard here. I've had to modify this to make it work for me. I've also got a few things to say about the mouse, but really it's about the dust. We will talk dust first. I'll just get the screen off to the side as well. Very expensive screen. I would suggest get the nano screen. That one's a bit glary. And we're going to come in and we're going to start to take a really close look what's going on here with the dust. The Mac Studio is a wonderful compact desktop computer. This is one of the higher end variants of it. I'm not going to get too technical about speeds and whatnot like other people do. I'm not that sort of person. I just need you to see clearly what's going on as I pull things away. Looks like a lot of dust. Considering I use the keyboard right here and the Mac Studio is just here, I'd say the bulk of that dust there is dead skin. The Mac Studio is a curious design. The bulk of the height is devoted to hiding away some big fans which are in the top here. There's also a big heatsink that is inside the computer in this area here. We live in a dusty world. Our homes are not dust-free environments, and the Mac Studio is a little bit curious because where it pulls air in is underneath. And it gets pulled up through the computer doing the cooling, and you'll see when we get to the back there is an exhaust port at the back of the computer. But I just think having air being pulled in from basically the desk level here is a fairly dumbass idea. I was taking a look at Mac Studios inside Crapple stores. I was flicking them up, taking a look underneath. I'll show you pictures here, and I could see there was a collection of dust and some dust bunnies going on underneath these computers. And that had me thinking mine needs a filter. This Mac Studio has been on all the time. It's been here for 3 months. I believe computers should be left on. Let the power management inside deal with the rest in the computer. And my old iMac that used to be here was basically on for 8 years solid until it died. Now I'm going to take a look at what's going on with the dust under the computer. I'm not sure whether just to flick it up and see what the filter's done, or maybe I'll just slide it a bit and we'll see what starts to show. Seems like the filter's not mooching from the table there, but the computer wants to move. Maybe I will just flick the computer up, eh? This is reminding me what I was doing in the Crapple stores to take a look underneath these machines at the dust collecting underneath. Okay, I'll just flick this girl on its end here. So of course it's going to be messy, and then we can take a look at what's going on with this filter here. I'm just getting a bit of an aerial shot here before I go in any closer. What I like is I'm not seeing an accumulation of dust and stuff here like I was seeing on the Mac Studios in the Crapple store. But crikey Charlies, there is a lot of dust around this very simple filter that I've put underneath my Mac Studio. I'm going in closer on the filter there before I touch it any further, and that material is the same material I used on Spider Tank 3 to stop critters from escaping across the top. And it's a material I found in Aldi, and it was sold as something to put on your fridge shelves to stop things being yucky. And I just thought it would be an awesome little filter for this very, very peculiar job here. And what I'm not liking up the back here, it looks like it has leaked past the edge of the filter in a sense. I don't like the fact I'm seeing white through there. And that leakage there is going to correlate with the back of the Mac Studio, which is this section here. Maybe if I swipe through here, I might get some yucky stuff on my finger there, or maybe I won't. Let's take a look. I can see that dust on the tip of my finger there. It's an extremely fine tan dust. Yuck. And looking underneath the Mac Studio, this is at the back, I can see that grill area is clogged with that very fine dust where my filter hasn't quite sealed properly. Remember, this is the bottom of the Mac Studio. Maybe I should just flick the whole thing upside down and make this the top. Because it says Mac Studio there, it looks like the top, doesn't it? It's a bit confusing, but that is the bottom. And here is the dust. I can now play with this now we've had a fiddle and diddle. This is all the dust. It is just amazing how much my little filter has been able to save going into the computer. This is just astonishing. My frippin' hell, look at this. This is more and more dust coming out. My God, this is frippin' scary. I can see what I call dust bunnies that it's caught. It's very similar to the dust I saw under the Mac Studio in the Crapple store. But as I'm fiddling with this, the really fine dust is decoupling from this foam and it's going down onto the desk, and then we'll take a look at it on the desk, and I'm just scrunching it up on my hand here and just getting the last of the fine stuff out. It's frippin' scary how much stuff's coming out of this foam. And if this filter wasn't here, all the dust that's just come out of this, you know where it would be? Up inside that expensive machine there, and that's frippin' scary. What I'm amazed with is how the dust is debonded from this material here. That's really nice. So, in a sense, this is nice and easy to clean, but man, wait till you see the dust that's left on the table. Unbelievable. Here's an aerial shot here. I've got my hand in there for scale of the dust that I pulled out of the filter there. Unbelievable. I didn't realise how much was caught up in that. Only after, remember, 3 months. Do it like that. Always do it like that. Should be like that, but I do it like that. This is that really horrible, horrible fine stuff that just floats up on the smallest bit of convection. I'm just going to try and get it into a pile so we can all be amazed at how much this Mac has been able to suck to the underneath of it while it's been sitting on my desktop. I hope people at Crapple are watching this. Okay, I'm getting into a nice pile here, and I'm not going to call it a little pile, I'm calling this quite a large, substantial pile of really fine, nasty, manky dust. I can feel it on my fingers here. It almost feels greasy. That's how fine this is. Suppose you could use it as a lubricant if you wanted to be really fancy. But here's my little dust artwork sitting on my desktop here. It looks absolutely stunning. If I get my little blue probing finger here and I move it around, we can see it's a combination of what I call really fine dust and skin cells, and other dust that is basically small dust bunnies, the sort of things that computers love to eat. And if I get really arty, I can set up the Crapple logo made up of dust sucked up from my Mac Studio. I love it. Well, that's going to make the Crapple fanboys rage, I'm sure, but remember that dust there was collected by my cheap and very inexpensive custom filter that was put under my beautiful Mac Studio. I could have a lot of fun with my dust Apple logo there, but maybe I should be a good boy now and tidy it up. And I've got my trusty Dyson here. Get rid of that Crapple logo. I'll also try and get the dust which has crept in on the back of the machine there. It's going to get a little bit noisy. Okay, dusted. I'll also come in with a dusting cloth and I will just get all that other fine dust up and out of here. It was everywhere. That really fine, floaty, terrible dust. Amazing how much was sucked up in short time, eh? Well, it's nice and clean here, dust free for the time being. The Mac Studio normally resides like this on a working area, and I've made comments on lots of the pull down videos of this computer about what happens with the dust underneath, what goes on in this section here. And when people have done pull downs of this computer, and often you'll see this computer in a pull down, let me just do this. Boop. Okay, you'll see it like this, and it's quite confusing because you think, oh, this is the top of the computer. No, this is actually the base. People will remove this ring here. There's a couple of screws underneath here. They pull this part off and they basically discard it. And it's almost like this is probably one of the most important parts of this computer because you need to understand what is going on with the dust there. Let me just swivel this around to show you the back port, because the back port sort of explains what the fans are doing. I'll just do it like this. I'm going to probably electrocute myself here. Let me do a quick edit here. Zip. Okay, I've done the big flipperoonie. The computer's now on its side. This is the top side, but this is the back. And this is the great big exhaust area for the big fans that are in this computer. And I'd be very curious of how much of that fine dust and any of the dust goes straight through the computer without painting the insides of the computer. I would love to see one of these pull down after it's done quite a few months work and hard work, because as the computer does bigger work, the fans do more work to cool it. I don't really push this computer because I'm not doing 4K or anything that requires massive amounts of work. I like to buy a decent computer that future-proof my purchase. That's the only reason why I do that. Most times when people pull these apart, they're brand spankers. I want to see one of these pulled apart which has done some work. With the computer still upside down, I'll just throw on my very rough and ready filter here. Maybe a bit of double-sided tape around this will adhere the filter and make it stick and stop that bit of leak that we had at the back here. You know, this is Mark 1, filter Mark 1. It was a military filter. And this is the material in its raw form. And people would recognize that from the spider tank. It's the stuff on top of the spider tank. I don't use that stuff in our fridge, but I don't know whether you put, you know, wet stuff on this and it stops. I don't know what it does in fridges. I wouldn't put stuff like that in fridges, but that's what it was purchased as. What it's very, very similar to is stuff you buy in aquarium shops, and I'm not saying certain brands here or anything, but if I ripped into this bag, might be an edit here. Thank goodness for edits. It's called carbon pad, and it's very similar to that fridge stuff. And what I like about this as well is its thickness. And if I get it up here, it's the right sort of thickness that if I cut it correctly, it's going to do the job for me. But remember, it's collecting a lot of very whitish looking dust. It's going to look very ugly very fast. And when I watch this getting dirty quite quickly, like within the first month, I could start to see all the dust starting to build up underneath the computer. Of course, it's all flipped over at the moment. And I kept looking at it, and it's quite distracting when you see dirt piling up under your computer. But the only thing that I liked was I could see the dirt here, but once it gets inside here, you wouldn't know where it's gone at all. I did also find this other filter material. It's called Range Hood Filter Black. It was bought in Daiso. If you can read Japanese, go right ahead. And I don't know whether this is a solution or not. It's a little bit less porous than the other material I just showed, the carbon black and whatever else Aldi stuff that I bought for bottom of fridges. But it's maybe a solution. Do it at your own risk, because I don't want you to blow up your crapple, or else you'll be going to me, let me blow up our crapple, and because Leo told us to put this on. All this stuff really has to be done very carefully, because you are changing the airflow of the computer. But I just want to try to arrest the dust. You know, maybe something like that, double-sided taped on and cleaned regularly or changed out is a solution. But I sort of like keep it simple, stupid, and that's why I like that there. Now I look back on these materials here, and I know what this does, but the important thing to look out for if you're going to choose something, it's got to be nice and porous. If I hold up to a light there, you can see the light bleeding through. The more I touch this carbon black one, the more I like it. Yeah, I've actually got an idea, a different way of putting this on. Instead of cutting it, I'm going to do it a different way. Maybe I'll do a real quickie as an alternative way, because we like to have ideas. But it's funny, this hood range blah blah, it's also good. It's nice and porous. Yeah, and that's a really, really inexpensive thing to grab as a dust catcher, but you want to be on top of keeping it clean, because if it clogs up, well, I'd hate to see you fry your crapple. The trickiest part for this was cutting this to this size in a sense, because it gets quite thin on the edge here. And I've actually got a bit of an idea, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to run down to the workshop and do it now, but I'm going to cut a very thin edge of it and basically glue it up into a circle, and hopefully the circle will basically come in and ride this area here. Okay, I'm down at the old workshop, and this is my old crapple here. Just get rid of that, and I'll just show you something inside and how it managed air and dust and whatnot. Just gently put that aside. Oops, I dropped that. Okay, This computer here was quite interesting because it was basically an all-in-one. I actually ended up loving this computer, but its air intakes were underneath the screen here, and a lot of people didn't quite understand where the air was coming into the computer. It was really just near the area where you would be using your keyboard, which is probably a bit of a mistake. And when it was opened up to replace its hard drive after the fusion drive failed, it looked like someone came along and basically sprinkled white icing sugar all through the whole of the computer, and what it was dust. A lot of it was skin. And now I understand how much dust gets into these. The way to solve the problem here would be to make up a little filter, put it along the bottom there, and that would catch all the nasty dust before it goes all over your lovely computer. This computer here served me well for 8 years. I can tell you lots about this computer now because I did so much work on it. Just get rid of the filter over there. I made up a little list of the things that went wrong with this computer, and it's a very short list, and this is it here. 2014 iMac, wonderful machine. The power management was fiddly to start with. That got fixed by an Apple upgrade. External USB hubs into this machine was a bit tricky. You had to be very careful what you purchased. After 6 years, a fusion drive failed. I learned a lot about hard drives and the failure of fusion drives and that. And also the final nail in the coffin was the power supply after 8 years. It's a pretty short list considering how much this computer was flogged by me. I became a Crapple fanboy through this and also through a MacBook Pro that I got, which is a 2014 one, which is the classic era of MacBook Pros. If it wasn't for the fusion drive failure, you know what, this could have well lasted right up to the 8 years without ever having to open it up. Really, really nice computer. I'll always treat it with respect, eh? This was the first Crapple computer I purchased, and I purchased this just a few months before buying the iMac you saw being respectfully thrown to the ground. This MacBook Pro is from the classic era, as we know now. You don't realise something's classic until a couple of years go by. It's a beautiful machine. It completely works to this day. It's as tough as nails. It's built like a tank. This got me through making videos when I had no iMac for many, many months, waiting for Crapple to get their chips in order because of the chip shortage around the world. I would struggle to find something this good today. I think I'd be correct in saying that. And I know that because I bought the iMac Pro for my daughter. I've got the logic board of it here. The owl eyes. I bought for her. Maybe people recognise this era of iMac Pros. It was the one which had the ridiculous touch bar which ran up along this area here. I hope they got rid of that stupid dumbass idea. Anyway, this here, this computer, and that's the only bits I've left of it, was in the first year logic board failed. Then all the keyboards started to go a bit ratty. It was nothing but trouble. And I think it only lasted my daughter 3 years. What a waste of money. We blew up a lot of money buying utter rubbish, and that's the weird part about Apple. Sometimes they get it incredibly right, but crikeys, when they get it wrong, they do it in spectacular fashion. I'm glad I got that rant out. I've been dying to say that for years. I'm going to need a blade and a straight edge, and I'll get making here. I'm going to cut basically the thickness of that one there. It's about 10 millimeters. If I flick that rule around, it's whatever in inches. I don't know my imperial. And I'm going to cut up this way here. It's very tricky to show you cutting. I can do a look what I prepared earlier. Like the Curiosity Show. Strips like this is what I'm after. I've just raided the kitchen and I've grabbed the bowl that I used a couple of months back as a template, which is the perfect size for what you want to cut if you're going to make a filter for underneath your Mac Studio. What I learned from this Mark 1 filter under my Mac Studio is all the dust was basically lining up underneath the computer. Nothing was getting through to the other side where the air intake is, and I think that's why I only need to go with something that thick and basically make a circle of stuff out of this. And the circle of foam just needs to adhere to the circumference of the bowl here. Easier said than done. I'm going to need maybe 2 or 3 hands to pull this off. I am going to come along and glue 2 pieces together using super glue, like such. Get it lined up, and then I will give it a kick with the zip kicker just to accelerate that glue. To get the correct size for the foam, I've just taped down at each quarter here the foam, and I can come along here and I can give the cut at the right spot through here somewhere. And like before, I've just got to get this in the right spot here, and we can come along and we can add our little glooby doobies, super glue in the right or wrong area, and of course come along and again give it a zipper kick. Okay, that's what I need. It's basically a ring of foam, and this is like Mark II, or I should do it like that, Mark II. I have a different way of putting a filter under the Mac Studio. That was of course Mark I, which is basically a double cut. So I cut a circle and I cut out another shape. I had the computer down here to get this shape. I mean, I should have made templates, shouldn't I? But I want something a little bit slimmer and elegant, and I think, well, my belief is when this gets presented under the Mac Studio, even though it's a bit willy wonka at the moment, it will fill out to being that natural circle that is underneath this computer. Okay, this is going to be the do or die moment. Yeah. Once I flip this over, I think we're a winner. It took a little bit of squeezing and deezing and just triple checking what's going on underneath. Let me get the camera down lower so I can see what the filter is actually doing. I'm looking at the back of the computer. We're looking at this area down inside here, which is where the filter is hiding. This is more elegant than what I had before. It's a black filter, so it's a black filter hiding in shadows at the moment, but the problem is here that it's going to end up turning lighter and lighter as it gets filled with dust. Maybe that's a good thing, then I know to swap it out. And what I like about Mark II is that it's going to be easily swapped out, and I can make more down in the workshop so I can bring them up here when needed. I think that's a winner, I hope. Just a wider view of looking down here to see what the filter looks like, that custom filter. I think this is a far nicer solution because the other filter was coming right out to the edge. You can only just see this one at the largest part of the circle, which is underneath there. You can only just see it. I'm hoping that new filter is going to collect all that fine dust like the first one and keep the dust from getting up inside the computer and into the fans. If you're at all worried that a modification like this is going to take out your Mac Studio, don't do it. Just let the dust take out the studio all by itself. Before I flutter away and stop annoying you, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about these two items here. I'll talk about the mouse first. The Mac Studio's got ports on the front of the computer. That's like a major revelation for Apple. And I can use this to, guess what, charge my mouse. The previous mice that I've used have been battery powered, the batteries leak, and then you go to Apple, buy another multi-$100 mouse. Yeah, been through that a couple of times. And guess where you put the charging port on the mouse? Well, you put it here. Okay, so now I'm charging my mouse. Now look what happens when I go to use my mouse. Whoever thought the best place for a charging port was directly underneath the mouse where you need to use it? I mean, give me a frickin' break. Okay, now for the piece de resistance of something that I just wish I could get rid of. I did try to take it back to the Crapple store because I told them I wasn't happy with it, but, well, I just said persist with it. It's called a Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. The form factor I like on keyboards is purely that there on screen. And that's what I had before, and I rode something like that for 8 years. But this one's got the Touch ID there. It's got an emoji button there, which I keep accidentally hitting. I keep accidentally hitting these keys. It's near the delete key. It lays extremely flat. I've actually modified it to pep up in the back a bit to try to replicate what I had before. And of course, that's what I had before. And that to me is a classic keyboard. I love this keyboard. I can't stand this. And it's got all this other dribble that I never wanted. And I even think this needs to be jacked up just that little bit more as well, like another bit of foamy bits that I stuck underneath. And that's what I had to stick underneath there. That's beautiful, isn't it? I should be a designer for Crapple with work like that. It does recharge like the mouse, so you can plug it in the back there. No batteries in this one. But I never got used to this format, and I keep making stacks of spelling mistakes. There's something about this keyboard, and I kept looking at it, I said, what is going on with this keyboard? I kept hitting this buttons over here, and I've so many times I was getting this keyboard here, and I kept putting it over the top and saying, there has to be something different here. What am I doing wrong here? And when I went back to the Crapple store to discuss what I didn't like about this, they just said, persist with it. We've had other people sort of in the same situation as you, and I think the problem is the thing lays way too flat. I think that's part of the big problem with this keyboard. I think I've heard other people discussing the way this is laid out and the fact that it lays all too flat and it's all ridiculously too long as well. It's just a frippin' nightmare bit of gear. I kept the box to it. It's one of those things, like a lot of crapple stuff, the boxing is actually more impressive than the thing that pops out of it. And because I've kept this, I can see how much I paid, and it's up here. There we are there. $279 for something that I can't stand using. It's great. Of course, that's the price in Australia, where this stuff is stupidly priced, say, versus what you see in the USA. I kept the box because I always had that hope that one day Apple might say, hey, Leo, bring your stuff back if you're not happy with it. We'll happily exchange it for something else. You know, miracles do happen. I'm sure they do. The keyboard issues spooked me so much, I actually went back to my old keyboard to just feel how these are. Remembering I've had this for 8 years, and if you listen to this, these keys really have a certain feel when you're using them. You know where you're at, but when I use this new keyboard, and I think this is the core of the problem, is there is very little response when you're putting your fingers on this. And listen to this. Okay, listen to this. For some reason, this works far better for me than whatever's going on here. I don't know whether anybody else has the same problem. It's most probably an extremely deep bunny hole, talking about ergonomics and why certain keyboards work versus other ones, and it's a very individual sort of problem. But remember, this video was all about looking at my completely awesome Mac Studio and just dealing with the dust that was accumulating underneath this computer, because I didn't want the dust to be going up through the computer. I want to stop it before it gets there. Okay, you two. Are you helping each other there or hindering each other? I think they're washing each other and it turned into a brawl. Teddy, don't do that to Bubble. Be nice, please. Don't be nasty. I see this all the time. There's a situation normal with these two. I know. Come on, guys. Come on, Teddy. There's fur flying. I think Bubble's losing fur in this. Come on, guys. I know whose tail's whapping around. That's Bubble's tail. Teddy seems to be in control. Ooh. Oh, okay, yep. Whoa.